Okay, guys, we are back from our break. When we left off, we were talking about what we found special about being in the Knights of Columbus. And for me, when I joined the Knights of Columbus, I honestly got a sense that I was really a part of something bigger than myself. And Deacon Don, we always talk about having that personal rule of life to live by. And one of the things that I was told as a knight, you are to carry your weapon all the time. So that's why I always have a set of rosaries in my pocket. That's why I love being a Knight of Columbus. The works that they do are amazing. My Grand Knight told me, because I'm not the pancake and bingo kind of guy, he says, you keep doing what you're doing because you're serving the order. And I was basically given permission by my Grand Knight to continue to do the media stuff. So, and I've met some great guys.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think we all, I don't care how old we are, I think all of us are still in some way that 12-year-old kid that's, playing cops and robbers or a soldier and fighting some battle, slaying some dragon. I think all of us, deep within ourselves still have that little kid inside of us that wants to confront evil and defeat the goblin and slay the dragon.
That's being a man. That's being a man.
And that's the cool part. And I've gone through, like I had said in the previous segment, I entered the Knights of Columbus when I was 18 years old. Now, was I active? No, I wasn't active. I was just simply a dues-paying member. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about it. I mean, when I entered the Knights of Columbus, I entered the Knights of Columbus in a community at a period of time surrounded by particular people where my experience of the Knights of Columbus was that social hall kind of understanding where the guys get together on a Friday night or a Thursday night, and the hall had a bar, had a banquet hall, a lounge, and the guys are hanging out, having a beer, telling whatever story, and then up on the TV you've got whatever game is going. That was my initial exposure. So, it wasn't my cup of tea at that point of time in my life. And, I was also serving in the military. And so the outlet for me, the dragon slayer inside of me, I had that experience in the military. Mm-hmm. I was able to put on the uniform, and at that time back in the 80s, we were all fighting communism. That was the big thing. And preparing for, World War III, some nuclear explosion. That was kind of the attitude back then in the 80s. But it really wasn't until much, much later in my life, probably started for me about 3-4 years ago, where, I started to develop a deeper understanding of Father McGivney and what he was trying to do. And in my life, living in today's society, I guess the insurance company, the whole life insurance policy, it's not really something that a 20 or a 30 or maybe even a 40-year-old person thinks a whole lot about, because you think you're bulletproof, you think you're Superman, and so the idea of needing something like that is like way down the road. But developing that deeper understanding of fraternity, the deeper understanding of unity and charity and patriotism, that's what kind of drew me in. And then right now, the council that I'm with now, I've had the opportunity to serve as Deputy Grand Knight, mainly because, and this is simply my personal feeling, I'm not a priest, but I am still clergy. And personally, I don't believe that a permanent deacon should serve as Grand Knight. I think that those top key positions should be reserved for the laity. My circumstances in my particular council, they asked me persistently to really, really help out. And so I accepted the role of Deputy Grand Knight, and I served with a wonderful man as Grand Knight. But I'll tell you this, and I really see the Holy Spirit moving through the Knights of Columbus and inspiring me. And then Deacon Dave, I want you to jump in when I'm done and start talking about a beautiful program called CORE. But what happened with me was I made it a deliberate point of order in my council that we must be men of prayer first before everything else. We must be men of prayer. Because for many, many years, like I said, that whole social component the monthly council meetings kind of drifted away from that recognition that we are, before everything else, men of prayer. And then kind of really move things into what you would expect them to be moved into. Business meetings. We got this event. We need to have that question on the docket and all of this stuff. And so what we did in my council was in the meeting room, which we know is called the council chamber, I had set up a prayer altar. And so at different points during the meeting, we would reference our needs and petitions to be placed upon the prayer altar. And towards the end of the meeting, we would everyone that could, we would actually get down on our knees and pray a decade of the rosary for the good of the order. But really that excitement of being men of prayer. And Dave, you mentioned the rosary being a weapon. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a weapon that none of us should be afraid to wield because evil is around us. And so the Knights of Columbus, for me, the excitement that brings me to the Knights of Columbus is the opportunity to, in a very real way, to be holy men of prayer who are warriors in favor of protecting the widows, the orphans, the homeless, the weak, the outcast, all of the social justice elements. We are the defenders of the faith, oriented towards lifting up all of those who are oppressed in one way or another.
Deacon Dave, would you say that the Knights of Columbus knew, and they don't want to call it a program, they want to call it some sort of an initiative or something? Would you say that it's sort of a diocesan third order?
Yeah. Well, let's describe what CORE is, and I'm not sure what label to put on it, Dave. Yeah, and I think Supreme actually struggles with what kind of label to put on it. But my understanding, and I know some of these guys, we have the advantage of living in Connecticut, and it's a very good and rare, I'd say, honor to be in Connecticut and in Knights of Columbus, because Supreme Council is right here. Where the order was founded is right here in Connecticut. The guy who used to be the state deputy for Connecticut, for example, works at Supreme. We know a lot of people that work at Supreme.
Right.
We have an advantage, and that we recognize as an advantage, being Knights in Connecticut. And the reason I tell that is because I know the guys, and I talked to them about who worked on developing this core program. As the story goes, the Supreme Knight went to this man, Damien O'Connor is his name, and said, how do I evangelize 2 million men? Meaning, how do I evangelize the 2 million members of the Knights of Columbus? Mm-hmm. Damien and his team, they went off and, went through the process, and CORE is what came out of that in response to that question, is we evangelize these men. So we have fallen away from the initiatives of why we, Father McGivney formed the Knights of Columbus, and that specifically being the formation of faith. We need to continually to form our faith. And I'll say in recent, I think it's pretty well accepted that the catechesis that the church has provided, the teaching of the faith in recent years, has not been as robust as it has been in the past. I don't want to get into the reasons and all that, but men need to form their faith. They do. And the more they know and understand their faith and what their role is in this world as members of the church and followers of Christ, the more effective they'll be as knights. And I think that's why the Supreme Knight asked, how do I evangelize 2 million men? And that's CORE.
Deacon Dave, is CORE an acronym, or is that just a title?
That's a very good question, because I think a lot of people might think it's an acronym. It is not an acronym. It's comes from Latin, the Latin word which means heart, and it's talking about men speaking heart to each other and to God. So you mentioned prayer. Prayer is a big part of it. CORE, I'll just say, is a Christ-centered brotherhood, which with intentional and frequent time for three things: prayer, faith formation, and fraternity. So this CORE is creating a time and space for men to focus on those three things, and prayer a little more substantial, not just like at a council meeting or other meeting. We have an opening and closing prayer, and maybe saying an Our Father or a Hail Mary. No, it's more than that. It might be a decade of the Rosary, like you were talking about earlier. Maybe we get down on your knees. Maybe it's a Eucharistic adoration. Maybe it's some Lectio Divina. Maybe it's a Mass, and depending on the desires of that particular council. And the fraternity part, I think the Knights are pretty good at that. Knights is a fraternity or a fraternal order, and we do pretty good with that. And that's the community part. That's getting to know and catching up with the men that you're with and in the meeting. And usually there's some refreshments, and if it's in the morning, it may be coffee, or maybe it's a pizza in the evening or something. And then I think the nuts and bolts of CORE, though, is the formation element. And there's all kinds of different things we can do with formation in this time. In a frequency, it occurs maybe at least monthly. You could do it twice a month or even weekly, depending on the desires of that particular council. It's open to all men of the parish. So it's not, you don't have to be a Knight of Columbus to participate in CORE.
So that's important. It's important that you mention that. So CORE is not an internal extension of a council. So CORE is not like a subcommittee within a council. CORE is not, a program for Knights only. But this was the brainchild of this may have come from the Knights of Columbus, but it's not like CORE is a component that can be incorporated or would be incorporated into every council meeting, thus excluding those who are not members of the council. This is something that can grow outside of the structure of the Knights of Columbus council meetings.
Definitely. Yes, definitely. Yep, it's open to all men, and the need for men, regardless if you're a Knight or not, is a need for us to continue to form our faith and to grow in our faith. We're on a journey, and we're in this Christ-centered brotherhood. We're brothers. Christ is at the center, and we're learning how to the faith that He gave us, and being disciples of Christ. And learning how to do all that. So it's a journey, and it's open. But all men need that, and
right.
So therefore it's open to all men.
And
so
and it's not a recruiting tool either. It's not a recruiting tool for people to come and join the Knights of Columbus. Its mission truly is to inform the men of the faith, right, Deacon Dave?
That is true. Yes, absolutely. Now, I would suspect, and I know that it does occur, that even if it was members were not, or guys that weren't members of the Knights of Columbus, hey, they're together with these great men, and you're all together working and developing your faith. Some of them may end up joining the Knights, but that's not the reason we do it.
From the fraternal aspect of CORE, is there space for men to share their faith experiences with each other?
Definitely, yes. Yeah.
Because I'm just thinking to myself, you have somebody, we kind of talk all around it. The interest is to reach out and, as you said, to evangelize, which I don't think it means to, drag people in and, force them to feel a particular way, but simply to share and to bring forth the experience of the faith to others. And I agree with you completely that it's something that we all need. I mean, like I said, I truly believe that within each of us is that 12-year-old kid that wants to get picked for the team, that 12-year-old kid that wants to hang out and go bike riding with his friends, the 12-year-old kid that wants to build tree houses and forts in the woods or whatever. That little kid is still within all of us, even though, we're old men with gray hair and big flabby bellies. I'm speaking about myself. But nevertheless, we're still desiring that camaraderie. And so it sounds like this is an opportunity for guys to come together, learn about the faith of the Catholic Church, learn how to live it out. Because I'm assuming this is not like sitting in school.
Correct. It's not.
Yeah. So you're learning. It's like we're hanging out, we're talking, maybe we're flipping burgers on a grill, whatever the case may be, eating pizza, like you said, or having coffee. And it's an opportunity for guys to really share with one another. Here's how I live it out: the good, the bad, the beautiful, the not so beautiful. And the Knights of Columbus, in my experience, very much is a depository of truly serious men of their faith. And you find guys that, man, I'm all in, right? That's the attitude, is I'm all in. And so I can definitely see how it's good to hear that this is not a recruitment tool for the Knights of Columbus, but yet CORE is using the resources of the Knights of Columbus to bring forth this opportunity for men to otherwise come together.
Deacon Dave, do you mind speaking to how CORE helps other organizations as far as, say, there's a parish men's club or something like that? How does CORE get together with them and support their mission?
Yeah, definitely. It is recognized that in parishes there are many men's organizations. I was just talking with a council in Connecticut today, and they have a Men of St. Joseph organization, and which does very similar work that the CORE is intended to do. So we don't want to compete with these other men's organizations or other things. That Man Is You is a very popular one. There's a number of councils in Connecticut or parishes in Connecticut that have That Man Is You programs, and these are all good things. And so we don't want to compete with them, but rather we want to collaborate with them. So we want to search and find ways in which we can work together to make what they're doing in their men's ministry and bring some of the the resources and abilities of the Knights of Columbus together with them, so that we reach more men. That's the bottom line. And for example, maybe the men's ministry hasn't cracked the Knights, or maybe there's a few Knights that are there, but not many. The Knights can then promote this men's ministry work within the council, and now we're bringing more men to that particular men's ministry, for example. But to search and find ways in which we could collaborate and work together.
So, what are some of the projects that you can think about that either your council in cooperation with CORE? What are some of the projects that you guys have participated in? And the other thing that comes to my mind is, what are some of the experiences, specifically within CORE itself, that a new guy would encounter coming in? You got somebody who is looking to deepen his relationship with the church, deepen his relationship with Jesus, not interested necessarily in participating in a parish Bible study, maybe a little shy about, okay, yeah, I'm a Catholic man, but I don't know nothing about the faith. What could a new guy, what should he experience, and what are some of the projects that you guys have done?
Well, so I think what a new guy would experience is the brotherhood. It's this Christ-centered brotherhood. I'll say trust. The trust came to mind, Deacon, that when you were asking that question is, in time, and it doesn't happen overnight, right? You don't have the first meeting and all of a sudden there's that trust. But over this time where together you're on this journey and you're praying together and you have fraternity, you have fellowship, you're together, and you're trusting, begin to develop this trust. And over time, that trust is what, that a new guy would ultimately experience. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by projects. The council itself does various programs and projects and stuff. We just had a golf tournament to raise money for vocations.
Okay.
We raised, I think, about $6,000 for vocations.
But that's not part of core.
That's not part of core, so I wasn't sure what.
Well, I'm just curious as to whether or not there has been any, core supports other men's ministry. So whether or not there's been any projects or aspects of support that you can speak about that core has done that has impacted whatever other ministry. So like, for example, the golf outing, whether or not there was some sort of presence or participation or support from the guys that are involved with core.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The guys that are part of the cores are active men in their council and in their parish and their community. So and by going through the core experience, they become, I think, even more active in their parish and community and council, et cetera. So, and I don't know. Core is pretty new. We're probably just finished our first year or second year rather. So we're still learning, still starting. There's not a ton. There's probably 50 councils in Connecticut that are doing some form of core right now. And the one project that just comes to mind in this way, a collaboration. I'm working. So, by the way, my role in the state of Connecticut is they call it EFF, Evangelization and Faith Formation Director for the state of Connecticut. And my job is with Dave. Dave helps me with this project and a few other guys. But the job is to introduce core to councils in Connecticut and throughout Connecticut and help them to implement it in the council. So we have about 180 councils in Connecticut, and we're somewhere in the 50 council range, depending on how you measure it, that are actually doing it. There's one council that has a men's ministry nearby. It's in Al Norge Diocese, and they're doing That Man Is You, and it's very successful. They meet every week at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday morning. They get up and they get in there and they have a meal. They have a breakfast, a wonderful breakfast, and they watch this That Man Is You video, about 30 minutes, and they discuss it. And they're growing in this brotherhood together. And there's a lot of men there. There's a lot of men. And we're trying to work with the council. I'm trying to work with the council to say, how can we make this even better if we bring the council core to what is being done with That Man Is You? Not trying to take away from That Man Is You. It's a great program. We just want to make it better. So that's what we're working on. It's still new, and so that's.
So if there are councils, if there are knights that are listening, and because I do recall there being information that was published in the Columbia magazine a while back. I do remember seeing that. So if there are guys that are intrigued about core, who should they reach out to? Should they reach out to the state EFF?
Yeah, if they know who that is, yes, they can reach out to the state EFF director. I'm just going to suggest that probably the best place to go is the Knights of Columbus have a wonderful website on core, and it's the website is kofc.org/core, COR. It's spelled COR. So, and from there's all kinds of resources there and information and how to get help to do this. So that's what I would suggest as well.
Exciting stuff.
Hey, Deacon, isn't it true? Was it you that was telling me that the highest rated state is the state of Idaho as far as the number of councils that are doing core?
No, I don't. I'm not sure. I was talking to you about Idaho, anyway, I'm not sure. What the ranking is. I can't speak to that. So.
Well, I had to
We can
do
make-
that. I had to do that so I could bring, say hello to our mutual friend Pat King out there in Boise.
I was gonna say we could make a pitch. Maybe somebody out in Idaho like Pat King could inspire others to bring the program out there.
Pat's doing a wonderful job out there. His state deputy is demanding 100% of all the councils be involved with core. So
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, we've talked about this on this program in the past, how absolutely important it is that men are not isolated, that men are not separated, disconnected, find themselves alone in regards to being around other men of faith.
yep.
The devil likes to just, I was sharing some time with a guy today, and we were talking about how the devil just attacks and taunts, and you go on your phone and you find, you're on social media and you've got all this crazy stuff that pops up in front of you.
Yep.
And it's really tough if you're not surrounded by strong men of faith. And the Knights of Columbus and the core program is exactly what somebody listening right now absolutely needs.
Absolutely. So again, that website is kfc.org/core.
Core.
So go there if you're interested in finding out more about core. Hey, and friends, don't forget to check us out at www.castingthe.net, where you can find all our shows from the past and some stuff about us going forward in the future. Guys, we got to leave it right there. Deacon Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you.
So for my co-host, Deacon Don Prendergast, our guest, Deacon Dave Imhoff, I'm David Fortin. We'll see you next week.
The preceding program was a Spirit of Truth Radio Arts original program for CastingThe.net.